The ultimatum director, Sarah Chun, was enjoying her morning coffee when the alarm started blaring throughout the Deep Space Communications Center. She had been running Earth's first contact division for 12 years, always wondering if this day would come. Now, as red lights flashed across the facility's corridors, she realized that day had finally arrived. The communication center buzzed with activity as technicians rushed to their stations. Captain Marcus Webb, the military liaison, was already at the main console when Sarah arrived. His usually calm demeanor showed the slightest crack of excitement. "Director Chun," Marcus said without turning around, "we've got multiple contacts approaching the outer solar system. The signatures are unlike anything we've seen before." Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her translation software, her dark eyes bright with scientific curiosity. As Earth's leading xenolinguist, she had spent decades preparing for this moment. "The communication array is picking up structured signals," she announced. "Whatever they are, they want to talk." Sarah set down her coffee and moved to the central display. The screen showed their solar system, with dozens of red dots positioned just beyond Pluto's orbit. Each dot represented a vessel larger than anything humanity had ever built. "How many ships are we looking at?" Sarah asked. 247 confirmed contacts, Marcus replied. "Each one is roughly the size of a city." Elana's fingers danced across her keyboard as alien symbols began filling her screens. "I'm getting something," she said. "Their language. Structure is complex, but the translation matrix is making progress. They seem to have some kind of universal translator." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that had never appeared in any human science fiction movie. The creature before them was serpentine, with scales that shifted between deep purple and silver. Its eyes were large and multifaceted, like those of an insect, but held an intelligence that was unmistakably advanced. "Primitive beings of the third planet," the creature spoke, its voice carrying an odd musical quality through the translation system. "I am Ambassador Thyrix of the Galactic Council. You will cease all activities and prepare for immediate integration into our administrative system." Sarah raised an eyebrow. Marcus crossed his arms. Elena stopped typing and stared at the screen, with fascination rather than fear. "Your species has been selected for incorporation into the Council's sphere of influence," Thyrix continued. "You have 72 of your planetary rotations to transfer all governmental authority to Council representatives. Failure to comply will result in the implementation of standard pacification protocols." The communication center fell silent for a moment. Then Elena spoke up. "Excuse me, but did you just give us 3 days to surrender our entire planet?" Thyrix's multifaceted eyes seemed to focus on her. "You understand the terms correctly, primitive creature. The Council has spoken with generosity. Most species receive only 1 planetary rotation to comply." Marcus cleared his throat. "That's very considerate of you. May I ask how many species you've conquered using this approach?" "The Council does not conquer," Thyrix replied stiffly. "We integrate. 137 civilizations have joined our administrative framework over the past 5,000 years. Sarah did quick mental math. So roughly 1 every 36 years. That seems like a rather slow expansion rate for a galactic civilization. Elena nodded thoughtfully. If you're truly galactic, there should be millions of species. At this rate, it would take you millions of years to integrate everyone. Thyrix appeared confused by their questions. In his experience, primitive species either surrendered immediately or begged for mercy. These humans were treating his ultimatum like an academic discussion. You do not seem to comprehend the gravity of your situation, the ambassador said, his voice taking on a harder edge. Perhaps you require a demonstration of council authority. The screen split to show a view of space near Jupiter. A small research station orbited the gas giant, one of humanity's furthest outposts. We shall destroy this installation to demonstrate our resolve, Thyrex announced. Oh, please don't do that, Sarah said politely. We just finished the atmospheric processing experiments there. It would be quite inconvenient to start over. Then you acknowledge our superior power? We acknowledge that you have impressive weapons, Marcus replied. We're just not particularly intimidated by them. Thyrex stared at them in disbelief. You are not intimidated by weapons capable of destroying your installations? Elena leaned forward with interest. How do your weapons work exactly? Are they particle beams or some kind of plasma discharge? The energy requirements must be enormous. We do not discuss military technology with primitive species, Thyrex said, though he seemed thrown off by her scientific curiosity. That's understandable, Sarah said. Trade secrets and all. But since you brought up demonstrations of power, perhaps we should mention that we've been destroying our own cities for quite some time now. You destroy your own settlements? The ambassador's voice rose in pitch. Oh yes, Marcus said casually. We've been doing it for decades. Sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. We're quite good at it, actually. Elena pulled up a historical database. We've detonated over 2,000 nuclear weapons on our own planet, just for testing purposes. We've had weapons capable of destroying entire continents for about 80 years now. You possess weapons of planetary destruction? Thyrex asked. Several different kinds, Sarah confirmed. Nuclear, biological, chemical, and we've been working on some interesting nanotechnology applications. Destruction is something of a human specialty. The alien ambassador was silent for a long moment. Why would you develop such weapons? Initially, to fight each other, Marcus explained. Humans have been at war with other humans for our entire recorded history. We've gotten very creative about it. You wage war against your own species? All the time, Elena said cheerfully. We've had 2 global wars that killed millions of people. We've had hundreds of smaller wars. Right now, there are probably a dozen active conflicts happening somewhere on the planet. Thyryx's scaled face showed what might have been horror. Your species fights itself continuously? Not continuously, Sarah corrected. We do take breaks, sometimes for whole decades. But yes, warfare is a major part of human culture. We've been doing it for thousands of years. And you survived? The ambassador asked weakly. Obviously, Marcus said. We're still here, aren't we? Actually, the fighting has made us pretty good at surviving almost anything. We've lived through ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and nuclear wars. We're surprisingly difficult to kill. Elena pulled up more data. We've survived in every environment on our planet. Deserts, Arctic regions, underwater, underground, in space. Humans adapt to pretty much anything. This is why you show no fear of the Council's ultimatum, Thyrex said, understanding beginning to dawn in his voice. Fear wouldn't be productive, Sarah replied. We'd rather understand what you want and see if we can work something out. But threatening us isn't really the best approach. Previous species have always surrendered when faced with our superior numbers and technology. Other species probably hadn't spent their entire evolutionary history fighting everything including themselves, Marcus pointed out. We don't surrender easily. It's not really in our nature. Thyrex was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he spoke again. I must consult with High Commander Zalton. This conversation will resume shortly. The transmission ended, leaving the 3 humans alone in the communication center. Well, that was interesting, Elena said. I don't think that went the way he expected. Definitely not, Sarah agreed. Marcus, what's our actual military readiness? If they decide to attack? We've been preparing for this possibility for 50 years, Marcus replied. Every scenario we've wargamed assumed hostile aliens. We're about as ready as we can be. Good, Sarah said. Though I suspect we may have already won this particular conflict. Elena looked puzzled. How do you figure? Simple, Sarah explained. They expected us to surrender out of fear. Instead, we asked questions, showed curiosity, and demonstrated that we're not easily intimidated. They're probably having a crisis meeting right now, trying to figure out what went wrong. 20 minutes later, the communication system activated again. This time, a different alien appeared on screen. This one was larger than Thyrix, with armor-like scales and scars that suggested extensive combat experience. I am High Commander Zoltan, the creature announced. I understand you have rejected the Council's generous offer of integration. We haven't rejected anything, Sarah said. We're just not interested in surrendering unconditionally to people we just met. We'd be happy to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchanges, that sort of thing. Zoltan studied them with eyes that held the coldness of a career military officer. You realize that the Council's fleet could reduce your planet to rubble within hours? Probably, Marcus agreed. And we could do the same to any planet we chose. Mutual destruction is hardly a basis for productive negotiations. You claim to possess weapons capable of planetary destruction? Elena brought up technical specifications on her screen. Would you like to see the data? We've been quite thorough in our weapons development. Nuclear fusion, antimatter, kinetic, bombardment systems. We've even weaponized some of our space infrastructure. Zoltan examined the information, his expression growing more serious. These weapons ... that you have used them? Some of them, Sarah confirmed. Fortunately, we learned that destroying ourselves isn't very productive. We prefer to save the really big weapons for special occasions. What constitutes a special occasion? Alien invasions, mostly, Marcus said with a slight smile. We've been planning for this scenario for decades. Every military academy on Earth has courses on extraterrestrial warfare. The High Commander was quiet for a moment. How many humans possess military training? Currently, about 200 million people serve in various military capacities, Elena replied, checking her database. But that doesn't count veterans, reserves, or civilian militias. Pretty much every human knows how to fight to some degree. Every human? It's considered a basic life skill, Sarah explained, like swimming or reading. You never know when you might need to defend yourself. Zoltan's expression was unreadable. The Council has never encountered a species like yours. We gathered that from your ambassador's reaction, Marcus said. Most species you've contacted probably didn't have our particular relationship with warfare. What relationship is that? We enjoy it, Helena said simply. Not the dying part, obviously, but the strategic thinking, the technology development, the camaraderie. War brings out both the worst and best in humans. You enjoy warfare? Some of us do, Sarah admitted. We've turned it into entertainment. We have games, movies, books, sports that simulate combat. We study famous battles for fun. We build museums to commemorate our wars. Zoltan looked like he was developing a headache. I need to discuss this with the Council. This conversation will continue later. Once again, the transmission ended. I think we broke him, Elena said with a grin. Asterisk the revelation. The next morning brought another communication from the alien fleet, but this time Ambassador Thyrix seemed more subdued. The serpentine alien scales had shifted to darker shades, and his multifaceted eyes held a wariness that hadn't been there before. The Council has decided to send a diplomatic team to your planet's surface, Thyrix announced. We require a better understanding of your species before proceeding with standard integration protocols. Sarah Chun nodded from her position at the communication console. We'd be happy to host a diplomatic mission. Where would you like to land? Your largest population center. That would be the Tokyo metropolitan area, but Geneva might be more convenient for everyone. We have better facilities for interspecies contact there. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her cultural analysis reports. Ambassador, may I ask what you mean by standard integration protocols? Are all species integrated the same way? Thyrix hesitated. The Council has found that most species follow predictable patterns when contacted. They either surrender immediately upon seeing our fleet, or they resist briefly before surrendering when we demonstrate our technological superiority. And then, what happens to them? Captain Marcus Webb asked. They are assigned roles within the Council's administrative structure based on their capabilities and resources. Mining species extract materials. Agricultural species provide food. Technological species contribute to research and development. Elena frowned. What about their own governments and cultures? Local governments are dissolved and replaced with council administrators. Cultural practices that interfere with productivity are discouraged. That sounds more like conquest than integration, Sarah observed. The council prefers the term optimization, Thyrix replied stiffly. I can see why other species might not appreciate being optimized, Marcus said dryly. 6 hours later, a sleek alien vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere and landed at the Geneva spaceport. The craft was beautiful in an organic way, looking more grown than built. Its hull had the same color-shifting properties as Thyrix's scales, adapting to match the surrounding environment. A delegation of 5 aliens emerged from the ship. Thyrix led the group, followed by what appeared to be a military officer, a scientist, and 2 guards. The military officer was clearly High Commander Zoltan, even more imposing in person than he had appeared on screen. Sarah, Elena, and Marcus waited on the tarmac with a small welcoming committee. The humans had decided to treat this as a formal diplomatic visit, despite the circumstances. Welcome to Earth, Sarah said as the aliens approached. We hope your stay is informative. Zoltan studied the humans with the eyes of a professional. Soldier, your species is smaller than I expected, he remarked. We make up for it with stubbornness, Marcus replied with a grin. The alien scientist, who introduced herself as Research Director Quillix, immediately began scanning the humans with various instruments. Fascinating, she muttered. Bipedal, carbon-based, surprisingly fragile construction. How do you survive in combat? Carefully, Elena answered. We're not built for individual combat, like some species might be. We rely on tools, tactics, and teamwork? Tools? Quillix asked. Marcus gestured to the human security detail standing nearby. Each guard carried weapons that were clearly advanced, though not as exotic as the aliens' equipment. These are just sidearms. Our real weapons tend to be much larger. The first stop on their tour was the International Museum of Human Conflict in Geneva. Elena had chosen this location specifically to help the aliens understand human culture. The museum's director, Dr. Ahmed Hassan, met them at the entrance. Honored guests, Dr. Hassan said with a bow, welcome to our most comprehensive collection of human military history. As they walked through the exhibits, the aliens grew increasingly quiet. The displays showed the evolution of human warfare, from stone clubs to nuclear weapons, with detailed explanations of strategy, tactics, and technology. This club is 40,000 years old, Dr. Hassan explained, stopping at the first exhibit. Archaeological evidence suggests humans have been making weapons for at least this long, possibly much longer. Quillix scanned the primitive weapon with her instruments. You have been fighting for 40,000 years? At minimum, Elena confirmed. Probably longer. We just don't have artifacts from earlier periods. They moved through exhibits showing bronze weapons, iron swords, crossbows, gunpowder weapons, and finally modern firearms. Each section demonstrated increasing sophistication, and lethality. Your species has devoted enormous resources to developing methods of killing, Zoltan observed. It's been necessary for survival, Marcus explained. We've had to fight predators, harsh environments, and each other. The species that survived were the ones that got good at fighting. The nuclear weapons exhibit brought the alien delegation to a complete stop. A scale model of the first atomic bomb sat in a display case, surrounded by documentation of its development and use. You actually used these weapons? Tyrix asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Twice in warfare, Dr. Hassan confirmed. Many more times in testing. We wanted to understand their capabilities. The destructive yield of this weapon could level one of your cities, Quilix said, reading from her scanner. That was the point, Sarah replied. We built them to end a war that was killing millions of people. The demonstration of power convinced our enemies to surrender. So you used weapons of mass destruction to force surrender? Zoltan asked. Among other things, Marcus said, we also used them as deterrents. The threat of mutual destruction kept our major powers from fighting each other for decades. The aliens exchanged glances that somehow conveyed alarm despite their alien features. The tour continued to displays of modern weapons, intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched nuclear weapons, antimatter research, and orbital bombardment systems. This is your current arsenal? Zoltan asked. A small portion of it, Elena replied. Most of our weapons aren't on display for security reasons. But yes, we've continued developing new ways to fight. Quilix was examining the technical specifications of a fusion bomb. This weapon could destroy an area the size of one of your major cities. We have weapons that could destroy areas the size of small countries, Marcus said matter-of-factly. We try not to build too many of those. They're expensive and somewhat impractical. Impractical? Thyrix's voice cracked slightly. Hard to use without causing collateral damage, Sarah explained. We prefer precision weapons for most applications. The final exhibit showed future weapons concepts, nanotechnology, biological, warfare, genetic weapons, and theoretical planet killers. You are researching methods to destroy entire worlds? Zoltan asked. Researching, yes. Building, no, Elena said. We learned from our nuclear weapons program that you need to understand the science before you can properly control it. Control it? Make sure you don't accidentally destroy yourselves, Marcus clarified. We've come close a few times. Learning experience. As they left the museum, the aliens were noticeably subdued. Research Director Quilix approached Elena with something resembling respect. Dr. Vasquez, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. How do you sleep at night, knowing your species possesses such destructive capability? Elena considered the question seriously. The same way. You sleep knowing that natural disasters could strike at any time, or that accidents can happen. We can't uninvent our weapons, so we've learned to live with them responsibly. Most of the time, Marcus added with a wry smile. Their next stop was a nearby sports complex, where a mixed martial arts tournament was taking place. The aliens watched in fascination as humans voluntarily engaged in hand-to-hand combat for the entertainment of cheering crowds. They are fighting recreationally? Tharix asked. It's a sport, Sarah explained. Humans enjoy testing themselves against opponents. These fighters train for years to perfect their techniques. Zoltan watched as one fighter threw another to the ground and applied a submission hold. This appears to be actual combat. It is, Elena confirmed, but with rules and safety measures. The goal is to win, not to seriously injure your opponent. Though injuries do happen, Marcus noted. That's part of the appeal. It's real conflict with real stakes, but not life or death stakes. Quilix scanned the fighters with her instruments. Their physiological responses indicate genuine stress and arousal. They are experiencing actual combat conditions. That's the point, Sarah said. Humans need challenge and conflict to feel fully alive. Sports give us a way to satisfy that need without starting wars. The final stop was the European Space Agency's Mission Control Center, where engineers were monitoring various deep space missions. The aliens observed as humans casually discussed plans for colonizing Mars, mining asteroids, and exploring other star systems. Your species is expanding into space, Zoltan observed. As fast as we can manage, confirmed Dr. Lisa Park, mission director. We have permanent bases on the Moon, Mars, and several asteroids. We're planning missions to Jupiter's moons and eventually to other star systems. Why? Thyrex asked. Because it's there, Dr. Park replied with a shrug. Humans explore. It's what we do. If there's a place we haven't been, we want to go there. Even if it's dangerous? Especially if it's dangerous, Marcus said. We've been exploring dangerous places since we first walked out of Africa. Space is just the latest frontier. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing humanity's expansion plans. We estimate we'll have self-sustaining colonies in a dozen star systems within the next 2 centuries. Quillix studied the display. These distances would require significant technological advancement. We're working on it, Dr. Park said. Fusion drives, antimatter propulsion, maybe even faster than light travel eventually. We'll figure it out. You are confident you can develop such technology? We always have before, Sarah said simply. Humans are very good at solving problems, especially if the problems involve going somewhere new or fighting something dangerous. As the day ended and the aliens prepared to return to their ship, High Commander Zoltan requested a private meeting with the human leadership team. We need to discuss the Council's next steps, he said, once they were alone in a conference room. Of course, Sarah replied. What did you have in mind? Zoltan was quiet for a long moment, his scarred features reflecting deep thought. In 5,000 years of expansion, the Council has never encountered a species like yours. How so? Every species we have contacted has followed the same pattern. They develop technology, they develop weapons, they fight among themselves, until they reach a stable equilibrium, and then they focus on peaceful development. When we arrive, they are peaceful, unified, and easily integrated into our administrative structure. That sounds very rational, Elena observed. Your species has not followed this pattern. You developed advanced technology while continuing to fight among yourselves. You created weapons capable of destroying your own planet, but did not stop fighting. You turned warfare into entertainment and exploration into a form of conquest. Marcus nodded. That's a fair assessment. The Council's standard integration protocols are designed for peaceful species, Zoltan continued. They are not designed for a species that has weaponized its curiosity and turned conflict into a recreational activity. So what happens now? Sarah asked. Thyrex spoke up for the first time in the private meeting. The Council is divided. Some members believe humanity should be quarantined to prevent you from spreading your progressive tendencies ... to other species. Others believe you should be recruited as a military auxiliary, Zoltan added. Your capabilities would be valuable in dealing with the few species that have resisted integration. And what do you believe? Elena asked. The High Commander considered his words carefully. I believe the Council has made a fundamental error in judgment. We assumed we were dealing with a primitive species that could be easily dominated. Instead, we have encountered a species that might be more dangerous than we are. We're not dangerous to species that don't threaten us, Sarah said. That may be true, but it is not how the Council will perceive the situation. Fear makes people do foolish things, even among advanced civilizations. Marcus leaned forward. Are you suggesting the Council might attack us, despite knowing it would be costly? I am suggesting that some council members would prefer to eliminate a potential threat rather than risk losing control of their empire. The room fell silent. As the implications sank in, what would you recommend? Sarah asked finally. Zoltan's expression might have been a smile on a human face. I would recommend that the council withdraw from this system and pretend this encounter never happened. Unfortunately, that decision is not mine to make. Then we'll have to convince them, Elena said. How long do we have? The council will convene in 3 of your days to decide humanity's fate. I will argue for withdrawal, but I cannot guarantee success. As the aliens departed, Sarah turned to her colleagues. Well, that was enlightening. Indeed, Marcus agreed. It seems we've accidentally become the most feared species in the galaxy. Elena pulled up her analysis reports. Not feared for our strength, but for our unpredictability. They can't fit us into their standard models of behavior. That might be our greatest weapon, Sarah realized. They can't plan for opponents who don't follow their rules. So what do we do? Marcus asked. Sarah looked out the window at the stars, where an alien fleet waited to decide humanity's fate. We do what humans have always done when faced with a superior enemy. We get creative. 3 days later, the Galactic Council would learn that the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their weapons or their aggression. It was their imagination.